This is Forward Boldly. I'm Christine Niles. Hello, welcome to Forward Boldly. I'm your host, Christine Niles, and this is the show where we explore the riches of our Catholic faith and how it informs our daily lives. Today we are going to be discussing the possible closure of Holy Innocents Church in New York City. Father Justin Wylie, a visiting priest from the Archdiocese of Johannesburg, South Africa, and who often ministers to the traditional Latin Mass community there, offered some rather strongly worded remarks at the end of a homily at Holy Innocents recently, reminding the faithful to first be charitable towards the Archdiocese in their no doubt difficult decision-making process. At the same time, he reminded everyone that charity is a two-way street, and the Archdiocese must also show charity towards the parishioners of Holy Innocents and take their concerns into account. And in addition to being a beautiful and historic church, it's the only church in the entire Archdiocese that offers a daily traditional Latin Mass. And there are some concerns that no provision is being made for this community if the church does indeed close. You know, as Father Wylie has said, it would be unthinkable to do this to, say, the Croatian community or the Spanish community. The Archdiocese would bend over backwards to ensure that a new home with a stable group of priests to minister specifically to them would be provided if their own church were going to be closed. As of yet, however, we have heard nothing from the Archdiocese as to making provision for the community at Holy Innocents. So, of course, there are some concerns about that. And we sincerely hope that the Archdiocese will show itself just as kind and fair to this community by ensuring a home for them. And I have a copy of Father Wylie's homily remarks, which I will be reading later. But first, in this segment, I want to welcome to the show Paul McGregor. He's a parishioner at Holy Innocents. He's going to discuss the situation a little bit. Paul is originally from Ireland. He got a degree from Oxford University, and he's been in New York for 10 years and has been a regular and active parishioner at Holy Innocents for about 5 years. So, Paul, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Christine.
Now, could you give us a little background on the situation here? How did we get to the point where the Archdiocese is considering closing anywhere between 20 to 25 churches?
Well, actually, it's not just about Holy Innocents. As you say, there are about 20 to 25 churches that could be closed in Manhattan. So it's not just about Holy Innocents. It's not just about one church on West 37th and Broadway here in Manhattan. This is really about how the Catholic hierarchy has been failing the faithful. And I have several graphs in front of me that illustrate this failure. They're taken from England and Wales, but I believe that the trends are probably the same here in the US. In 1958, there were nearly 16,000 converts received into the Roman Catholic Church in England and Wales. In 2003, less than 3,000. In 1954, there were more than 8 ordinations for every 100,000 in the Roman Catholic population. 2003, less than 1 per 100,000. My own childhood church had 3 well-attended Sunday masses in the early 1960s. Now it's boarded up, while the surrounding population has grown and several so-called Catholic schools in the area continue to operate. So, we've been suffering from 2 generations of failing priests and failing bishops, and all this in an era when the Catholic faith has been under massive attack from the outside. So, as I see it, the plans to close Holy Innocents and 20 or so more other churches in Manhattan is a symptom really of this larger problem.
Let's talk a little bit about Holy Innocents itself. I know this is a historic church. What makes it unique or special?
Well, of course, like any church, what makes it special is the fact that we have a daily Mass there. We have the real presence in the tabernacle. And I'm glad to say that in Holy Innocents, unlike many churches, the tabernacle is on the main altar. It's not hidden away in some side chapel. But a bit of history, perhaps. Holy Innocents was built at the end of the Civil War, and it was built thanks to the efforts and the faith of an Irish priest. His name was Father John Larkin. And the architect was also from Ireland, Patrick Charles Keeley. There are many examples of his churches throughout Manhattan and Brooklyn. And so Father Larkin built this church, and he was able to fill this church. on a Sunday, there would be over 1,000 attending the 5 Sunday Masses. When they opened the 2 schools, there were 2 parish schools. The New York Times report says that there were 8,000 people turned out for the opening of that alone. Now, if you go inside Holy Innocents, the first thing I think that strikes you is the mural of the crucifixion behind the main altar. This mural was painted by an artist from Italy called Brumidi. Now, Brumidi is famous for his paintings in the Capitol in Washington, including the Apotheosis of Washington. I believe it's in the inside of the cupola in the Capitol. And this Brumidi mural in Holy Innocents was recently restored at a cost of around $300,000, I believe. The church also has a shrine to the unborn. This is very appropriate, given that New York is the abortion capital of the USA. And in this shrine, you actually see names of individual babies who have been aborted. It's very moving to see how grandparents, for example, have put the names of their expected grandchild and when that child would have been born. There's also a famous crucifix. This is a life-size crucifix. It's referred to as the return crucifix. Now, last year, I wrote an article that was published in an Irish newspaper called The Catholic Voice, in which, if I may quote my own words, I refer to this beautiful crucifix and its history. And I wrote that at the outbreak of the First World War, a Frenchman living in New York was preparing to leave to join the fighting. And at that point, there was an artist, Charles Chambers. He lived between 1882 and 1964. He was famous at the time as an artist, and he saw this man kneeling in front of the cross with one hand on Christ's nailed feet. And as the man was praying, Chambers made a rapid sketch. And then afterwards, in conversation with the Frenchman, Chambers learned that he had stopped practicing his faith since arriving in America. And now, on the eve of his departure for the war, he felt great contrition. And the encounter between the artist and the sinner produced the painting now known as the Return Crucifix. And interestingly enough, after the war, the artist Chambers received a letter from the man announcing that he'd survived the fighting in the First World War and was entering a monastery in France. And there's actually a reproduction of this painting in stained glass in the organ loft, just next to the organ. And I really do find it very moving when I'm in Holy Innocents to see parishioners in the same pose as this Frenchman. They're on their knees with their hands on the feet of Christ in prayer. The other day, a lady was there praying, and afterwards I was in conversation with her, and she told me, yes, her grandmother was seriously ill, and she was coming here every day to pray in front of that crucifix. I don't know what priest or bishop could see such spirituality, could see this demonstration of piety, and say, you know what, we're going to pull down this church. So that's another, that Return Crucifix, I believe, is one of the jewels. Another important dimension of Holy Innocents is the Isaiah Hall. This is a thrift store, which is open every day of the week. It's in the Undercroft, below the church. And what happens is that local businesses, since Holy Innocents is in the midst of the garment district, they contribute clothes. These clothes are bought at low prices by the needy, and these people who come and buy clothes, they also find a warm refuge, a drink of coffee. It's a place that they really feel attached to. So that's just a few of the aspects that make Holy Innocents unique, but it's also unique in some other ways. The church has no debt. It has a healthy cash flow, and it makes no demands on the Archdiocese. Laymen ensure that there are priests. You mentioned the daily traditional Latin Mass. It is thanks to the dedicated work of laymen, two laymen in particular, that we have priests who come each day to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass. And as you say, this Holy Innocents is the only church in the New York Diocese with the traditional Latin Mass. And then, of course, the laymen and women who make up the beautiful choir. You can hear every Sunday at 10:30 Missa Cantata, but also during the week at the 6 p.m. Mass as well. And then there are the devoted parishioners who keep the church running. Last Saturday morning, I joined the cleaning crew from the Altar Society that goes to clean the church one Saturday every month. So basically, that's what I believe makes Holy Innocents so precious, not just to me, but to hundreds, perhaps thousands of people. We just want to be left in peace to continue to practice our faith.
Now, how would you describe the traditional Latin Mass community? Is it just a handful of people, or is it a robust, thriving?
I'm 58 years of age. I've been regular in my faith throughout those decades. I have never seen a community that is as strong as the Latin Mass community in Holy Innocents. I've made many friends there. We work together. We meet actually after the 10:30 Mass every Sunday. We have a coffee hour in the Undercroft below the church. And I have really discovered a lot through being able to speak to other believers through this Latin Mass community. There are two individuals in particular who have made massive personal sacrifices to ensure that this Latin Mass can be celebrated every day of the year. Right. So no, it's not a small community. It's not only a large community, it's a vibrant community who are committed to keeping Holy Innocents open and to keep the holy traditional Latin Mass celebrated every day of the year.
And lest listeners think that Paul is merely speaking from his own bias, I can tell you personally that Father Justin Wylie echoes his same sentiments. When I spoke to Father Wylie about this, he told me, and of course he ministers to a number of parishes throughout New York, and he said that he's consistently bowled over by the dedication of the community at Holy Innocents, and where many parishes struggle to find a single altar server, when he comes to Holy Innocents, he regularly gets 18 altar boys. And these are boys who will come from all over, whether it be Queens, the Bronx. They'll sit on the train for an hour just to make it to Mass, many of them even without their parents. And this is a community that is ripe for vocations. So in a time when not just the New York Archdiocese, but dioceses in many places are struggling with a priest shortage, I think this would be doubly a shame to close this place and essentially make these young men homeless.
Absolutely, Christine. And I must say that I have the honor that despite my advanced age to have been admitted into this large group of altar servers. And I must say that one of my greatest, I would say, personal achievements has been to learn to serve the traditional Latin Mass. It makes a massive contribution to one's spiritual life.
Right. Now let's turn for a moment to the actual process, the initiative Making All Things New. Could you explain to our listeners what this initiative is, and what you think of this process so far?
Unfortunately, I don't know much about the process. It seems to be done largely behind closed doors. I did fill out a detailed questionnaire, however. Interestingly enough, I found this questionnaire in a drawer at the church with about 100 others. I don't know if any of them had been read. What I do know is that the Archdiocese hired some consultants to, quote-unquote, support the process. Now, I, as it happens, worked for over 10 years in management consultancy, and I know that in many cases, management of our clients had already decided to close factories or offices, and we were just hired to take the heat and serve as lightning conductors. I don't know if that's the case here. What I would say about the process, however, is the particularly horrifying degree of secrecy. I was on the sidewalk this morning in front of Holy Innocents, talking again to people as they were leaving the morning Mass, and I was amazed, totally amazed at how few people know that the diocese plans to close their church. And what's the response? Well, it's outrage. I was given by two parishioners, I was given copies of notes, letters they have sent to the Archdiocese. And this is really, one hopes that these voices are being listened to. Let me quote one in which this gentleman says, "Holy Masses are being eliminated by the fact of closing down churches. It may be practical and efficient to consolidate and close down churches. However, the church is not a business entity, but the holy temple of God, with Holy Mass as its focal point." And the other writes, "We, the parishioners of Holy Innocents, located in the heart of the garment industry, are devastated at the thought of closing our home of prayer." And further on, "The noon Mass is a necessity. Father James packs the church every Thursday and is loved by all. His spirituality touches our very soul with his prayers and homilies." So those are some of the voices that I hope are being heard in the Archdiocesan offices on First Avenue.
The secrecy is a little bit surprising to me because in Father Wylie, too, he said that Sunday when he gave those remarks, he said one of the reasons that he made his remarks so strong was because he was actually told before the homily that he was not permitted to make an announcement about the town hall meeting, about the closure of Holy Innocents. And also, you and the parishioners there were not given permission to post an announcement in the parish bulletin. Was there ever a reason given as to why permission was not granted and why Father Wylie was forbidden from making an announcement about it?
I have not heard such a reason. I've not heard any explanation. I don't know if any other parishioners have. It is the case that a small group was meeting to see how we could struggle to keep our church open, and we were told that we must cancel the planned meetings. So we have to make other arrangements if we wish to plan our struggle against our own hierarchy, against our own priests, against our own bishops, to continue to have Mass celebrated in Holy Innocents.
It does seem strange that they would try so hard to keep a lid on this if they were truly interested in getting feedback. So have you heard nothing at all from the Archdiocese? No desire to meet with you or the group there to hear your concerns?
Once again, I'm just one parishioner out of many hundreds. I personally have not heard that. What I am hearing, because I'm talking to parishioners, is that there's outrage. One friend of mine contributed, get this, $10,000 as a contribution to the restoration of the Brummidi mural, which, as I said a moment ago, cost in the range of $300,000. Now, if he would not be a happy parishioner if he were to learn that hundreds of thousands of dollars were being raised when the planners at the Archdiocesan offices on First Avenue already had Holy Innocents on their list for closure.
Right. Now, it is public knowledge that St. Patrick's Cathedral is in the process of a nearly $200 million renovation. Of course, St. Patrick's is the seat of Cardinal Dolan, but there has been some talk that they've run into cost overruns. What do you make of this?
I don't know if the cathedral has a debt, but if it does, then that's an unfortunate situation that Holy Innocents does not suffer under. What I can say, though, is I've talked to over 100 people on the sidewalk, as I said, and to get back to your point about the secrecy, 80% are not aware of what the plans are, but 100% are scandalized and angry. And as you said yourself, many people come for the Sunday Mass. People travel from New Jersey, from upstate New York, from Long Island, from far off from Long Island to attend the 10:30 Missa Cantata. And during the week, people come because it's close to their local offices and places of work. So what I would like is for somebody from the Archdiocese to actually come, look those men and women in the eyes and say, what is the deal? Why do they want to close Holy Innocents? And maybe they could put to rest the rumor that, as you say, is indeed going around, that maybe it's to cover a cost overrun on the rehabilitation of St. Patrick's Cathedral.
I think that in charity, they really do need to come and meet with you all, and the secrecy is a bit strange. So.
The secrecy, and also I would say the Orwellian nature of the whole process that they've called making all things new. I think a better title would have been making all churches disappear, after the successful implementation of the process, making all churches empty.
Right. Is there a place where listeners can go online to learn more about Holy Innocents?
Well, Holy Innocents does have its own website. That's www.innocents.com. One plan we have is perhaps to set up a website which would deal specifically with the efforts to keep our lovely church open. We also have an email address. It's don'tkillholyinnocents@gmail.com. Don't kill holy innocents, in one word, @gmail.com.
Excellent. All right, and you and I will keep in touch, and if this website does go up, I'll be sure to post an announcement.
I'd just like to make some concluding points, if I may.
Sure, absolutely.
Your listeners will have seen on their TV screens how in China, Syria, and Nigeria, churches are being bulldozed. And we expect that of virulent atheists and Islamists, but we don't expect it from our own Catholic hierarchy. But on the positive side, we've also seen on our TV screens how unaccountable anonymous elites around the world are being challenged and brought to account for their misdeeds. Recently, there was the Cardinal's annual appeal, and I had a check for $500 ready to send off, but I must say that I tore that check up when I learned that they wanted to close Holy Innocents. And if Holy Innocents closes, I won't put another cent in the collection box of any church in the New York Archdiocese. And if they do make the decision to close Holy Innocents, may it weigh on their consciences with the weight of a demolition ball. So please, can we have priests like Father Larkin who knew how to fill churches, not empty and destroy them? Because after all, it's we, the faithful parishioners, whose donations feed, clothe, and house them. Thank you very much, Christine.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate your taking the time to speak with me today. And I encourage all my listeners to please keep the situation in your prayers. Pray for Holy Innocents. Pray for the Cardinal. Pray for the Archdiocese that the right decision would be made. Again, thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate your speaking with me today.
Thank you, Christine.
Okay, after the break, I'll come back and I'm going to read in full the text of the homily remarks from Father Justin Wylie. We will be right back. You're listening to Forward Boldly Radio. Please visit our main page at forwardboldly.com, where you can learn more about our programming and access all our hosts' archived shows. Our hosts, comprised of both clergy and laity, are all faithful to the magisterium and provide solid commentary on various aspects of Catholic orthodoxy and orthopraxy. The mission of Forward Boldly Radio is to spread the light of the one true faith through online media. And we take our name from Saint Joan of Arc, who, when riding into battle with the army of soldiers, would hold high her battle standard and cry out, "In God's name, forward boldly." We hope you'll join us in our mission by sharing our shows, praying for us, and if possible, donating to help offset the costs of running this network. All our content is free. Again, you can find us at forwardboldly.com and on Facebook. Thank you for your support, and in the words of St. Joan of Arc, in God's name, forward boldly. You're listening to Forward Boldly, and I'm Christine Niles. As I said before, I have a copy of the homily remarks that Father Justin Wylie offered on the fourth Sunday after Easter at Holy Innocents Church. They are rather strongly worded. They were offered towards the end of his homily there, and I ask that you please pay attention to what he says because he's quite familiar with the situation at Holy Innocents. And he says, "I understand you will meet to discuss a path forward for the precarious existence of your own worshiping community. Will this be the path Christ charts, or will we make of ourselves instruments of the evil one for division and derision? The test of this, as in all things, is charity. Deus caritas est, et ubi caritas est, vera Deus ibi est." Where there is a breakdown of charity, there also is the spirit of the Antichrist. I urge you, therefore, to be obedient and to be charitable with your legitimate superiors in all this, as well as with each other. Be firm and clear also, and just. However, let charity always be the litmus test of whom it is you serve. Allow me to say, first of all, that it has been my great privilege to serve this community during my term in New York. I've benefited and learned so much from you and from your piety and fidelity, vivacity and zeal. I refer to all of you now. You know who you are, I hope, from the love that I bear for you. Some I know better than others through service at the altar, your acolytes and MCs. Others I have loved with my voice and through my ears, like the organists and choir. Others yet through my eyes, such as those who keep the church so beautiful, restored and adorned with flowers. Others yet I bear with love, such as those who source and restore such magnificent vestments. Many of you are known to me in the intimacy of the confessional, or through the rich friendship of spiritual direction. Upon all of you I gaze from this pulpit with a father's love and admiration. Yet I must make my own the words of our blessed Lord when I tell you that my heart breaks with pity to behold those who seem to be as though sheep without a shepherd. Allow me to explain. When I first came to New York, I marveled at the freedom traditional Catholics had always enjoyed in New York. When the Mass of the Ages seemed everywhere in the world effectively to have been banned, here in New York it found a home. What freedom, I thought. What magnanimity from the pastors of the church here in this place. Now, however, with the benefit of time and deeper understanding, I see the superficiality of this first appreciation. Indeed, such a conclusion would be more befitting the 1980s and 1990s, when Catholic laypeople were organizing such masses here and there on an ad hoc basis. First at St. Agnes, I believe, and then elsewhere, homes were found for such communities. And this indeed did give for their members here a happier prospect than in many parts of the world. But in a post-Summorum Pontificum church, after Pope Benedict courageously proclaimed that the extraordinary form of the liturgy pertains equally to the fullness of the Roman Rite, this approach cannot anymore, I think, be characterized as true magnanimity. As I said, during the dark days of Prohibition, New York seemed to be a happy place to be for you because of the indult masses at places like St. Agnes. But in the fresh juridical freedom Summorum Pontificum brings, New York has become, in my view, a less felicitous place for traditional Catholics, because nothing is structured, nothing acknowledged. Who takes responsibility for you pastorally? Pastores dabo vobis, the Lord promises Jeremiah, I will give you shepherds. Fundamentally, and this is something about which I urge you to think well and pray much about, as a priest, I have to say, I worry about the situation of traditional Catholics in the Archdiocese. Yes, the Archdiocese permits a traditional Mass here or there, but responsibility for the matter continues to rest upon the initiative and resourcefulness of the laity, who with enormous difficulty have to source priests hither and thither, as though we were seemingly still living in Reformation England or Cromwellian Ireland. Isn't it high time for the Church to take pastoral responsibility also for these sheep? Do they not deserve a shepherd, a parish, or at least some sense of juridical security? What happens to you when the parish you are harboring in closes its doors? What will become of the priestly vocations aplenty I see in these numerous young men of such quality as we have in abundance serving here at Holy Innocents, St. Agnes, and elsewhere, remaining as they do at the mercy and sometimes caprice of landlords who for one reason or another permit their presence in their parishes? Doors everywhere seem closing to them. Our Savior Church has closed its doors to them. St. Agnes, for its part, guards its doors vigilantly to make sure they don't enter the building 5 minutes too early or don't overstay their welcome by 5 minutes more. Now it seems the doors of Holy Innocents will be closed to them too. Taken together, this is, in my view, a clear instance of exclusion and injustice which you should bring to the attention of your shepherd. You are fully fledged members of the baptismal faithful for heaven's sake. Why are you scurrying about like ecclesiastical scavengers, hoping for a scrap or two to fall from the table for your very existence? The precariousness of your community cannot hinge on a church building being available to you as though you were a mere sodality or guild. The days of renting space in hotels and the like must surely be over. You are not schismatics. Whatever happens to Holy Innocents, and this will be the decision of your chief shepherd here, who will base his decision on more information than any of us has at his or her disposal. You need to assert that you belong to the church as fully as any other community. You found a home here, largely through your own hard work and perseverance. No good shepherd could dispossess you of your home without providing safety and good pasture elsewhere. Parishioners of a Novus Ordo parish closure might easily find another home nearby. But what of you? You have a right to find the Mass, and not only on Sundays, and not only the Mass, but the other sacraments and rites of the Church. Closing this parish is more akin to closing a linguistic parish or an Oriental Rite parish. What becomes of you? No longer, I say, should you think of yourselves as squatters in the mighty edifice of Holy Church, nor should you find yourselves turned out like squatters. Shepherds must needs make difficult decisions, such as the erection or suppression of parishes. That is their onerous duty, and in this they must have our obedience, charity, and prayer. But never should they throw open the sheepfold and allow the uncertain dispersion of their sheep into a world full of wolves. Charity, of course, is a two-way street. As I said, those were the homily remarks of Father Justin Wylie at Holy Innocents Parish on the fourth Sunday after Easter. Strong remarks. He's a visiting priest from the Archdiocese of Johannesburg, South Africa. And he's been in New York for several years, so he's quite familiar with the situation there. So we ask that you please keep this parish in your prayers, keep the Archdiocese in your prayers. And with that, we will sign off. I'm Christine Niles for Forward Boldly Radio. Remember that you can check out all our archived shows at forwardboldly.com. You can also find our podcasts at the Regina Magazine blog, found at blog.reginamag.com. Thanks for listening, everybody. Keep fighting the good fight of the faith. And in the words of Saint Joan of Arc, in God's name, forward boldly.